So think about this for a second. Two completely different points in history, two massive, high-stakes conflicts, and right at the center of both, a secret code. And that code is symbolized by a fish. It's an incredible story, so let's dive in.
How on earth could a symbol of faith for persecuted Christians have anything to do with a top-secret Nazi supercode from World War II? It sounds impossible, right? Well, that is the exact mystery we are going to unpack today. All right, let's start our journey nearly 2,000 years ago. We're in the Roman Empire, a place where a simple drawing in the sand could literally mean the difference between life and death. Now, to get why they needed a code, you have to understand just how dangerous it was. This was a brutal time. You had Emperor Nero blaming Christians for the Great Fire of Rome, Emperor Decius demanding sacrifices, and then Diocletian's Great Persecution. Being a believer wasn't just unpopular, it was a potential death sentence. Secrecy was the only way to survive. So this creates a huge problem, right? How do you find your people, your allies, when saying the wrong thing to the wrong person could get you killed? You needed a silent signal, some kind of secret handshake that no one else would understand.
And that signal was the ichthyes. It's just the Greek word for fish. This simple little outline became their secret password. It was scratched on doors, drawn in the dirt, carved on the walls of the catacombs. It was the sign that marked safe houses and separated a friend from a deadly enemy.
And this wasn't just some random symbol they picked out of a hat. It had incredibly deep meaning. An early church father, Tertullian, wrote about it around 200 AD, connecting the little fishes, the believers, to the water of baptism and to Christ himself. It was a powerful statement of who they were.
Okay, hold that thought about ancient Rome. We are about to jump forward nearly 1,800 years. The scene changes from dusty Roman roads to the crackling radio airwaves of the Second World War. A totally new battlefield for secrets.
Over at Bletchley Park, the Allies' top-secret code-breaking headquarters, they started intercepting these new, weird German signals. It wasn't Morse code. It was something else entirely. They gave it the code name FISH. And they quickly realized this was the highest-level stuff. Communications going straight from Hitler's high command to his generals on the front lines. This was the absolute motherlode.
And the scale of this thing was massive. The Allies gave each of these fish circuits its own fishy code name. You had tunny, bream, turbot, codfish. This wasn't just one code to break. It was a huge, sprawling, encrypted network carrying the Third Reich's most important secrets.
I mean, the stakes here just could not have been higher. If the codebreakers at Bletchley Park could somehow crack the fish ciphers, they could basically read Hitler's mind. They'd know his plans before they happened. They could change the entire course of the war.
But before we break that code, let's jump back to Rome for a minute. How did that first fish code actually work? Let's unlock the simple, elegant genius hidden inside that little drawing. See? The secret wasn't really the drawing itself. It was the word it represented. Ichthyes. It was an acrostic, a word puzzle. So the first letter, the Greek iota, that stood for Isus, or Jesus. The second letter, K, stood for Christos, which means Christ. The next two letters, theta and upsilon, together stood for Theo Huios, meaning God's Son. And that final letter, sigma, well, that stood for soter, which means Savior. And there it is, put it all together. Jesus Christ, God's Son, Savior. A complete core confession of their entire faith, hidden in plain sight, inside the simple, everyday Greek word for fish. It was just brilliant.
Now, let's see how the second fish code was broken. This was infinitely harder. We're not talking about a clever word puzzle. We're talking about a terrifyingly complex machine, the Lorenz cipher, that was engineered to be unbreakable. But it had one weakness: human error.
The whole thing came down to one single mistake. On August 30th, 1941, a German radio operator had to resend a long, 4,000-character message, and he made a critical error. He used the exact same secret key settings as the first time. This gave the codebreakers what they called a depth, two different encrypted messages that were scrambled using the same key. That was the tiny crack they needed to break the whole thing open.
And this is where a young mathematician named Bill Tutt did something that was, well, basically magic. He took the key that was generated from those two messages, and working completely by hand, he just looked for patterns. He found this faint 41-bit repetition, and from that one tiny thread, he was able to reverse engineer the entire logical structure of the Lorenz machine without ever seeing it. It's just an incredible feat of brain power.
But Tutt's breakthrough, as amazing as it was too slow. They couldn't do the math by hand fast enough to be useful in the war.
So what did they do? They built a machine to do it for them. The result was Colossus, the world's very first programmable electronic digital computer. They built 10 of these monsters just to automate the breaking of the fish ciphers, and in doing so, they changed the world forever.
So there we are, two fishes separated by nearly 2,000 years, but connected by this shared need for secrecy during a time of intense conflict. Let's take a look at what they left behind.
When you put them side by side like this, the parallels are just fascinating. The ichthyes, a hand-drawn symbol for spiritual survival. The fish ciphers, a machine-generated code for military strategy. One was a test of a person's faith, the other was a pure test of intellect. But deep down, they were both doing the same thing, hiding a vital message that the enemy absolutely could not be allowed to read.
And their legacies couldn't be more different. The ichthys helped a small persecuted faith survive and eventually spread across the entire globe. Breaking the fish ciphers gave the Allies the intelligence they needed for D-Day, saving countless lives and shortening the war. And today, one symbol is something you see on car bumpers all the time, while the story of the other, well, that was kept top secret for decades.
And all this really brings up a final thought. From a simple sketch in the dirt to a complex stream of electronic pulses, secrets have always shaped our world. And it really makes you wonder, doesn't it? What symbols, what hidden codes do we all use today to signal who we are and what we truly believe?